Hey guys, this is Courtney from Mill's Bloom, and today I'm here to talk to you about the Pisces Full Moon happening on September 10th at 17 degrees of Pisces. So that means that the sun is in the opposite sign of Virgo, and so many of us have been maybe feeling an inclination to really make sure that we don't lose track of anything. If we are feeling very stimulated with this Mars in Gemini that's happening, where we're collecting a lot of information, the sun being in Virgo is going to help us organize this information. And so many of us may be feeling the need to have certain routines or systems in place in order to manage essentially all the things that we want to do, all the things that we're passionate and excited about. So the sun is an analytical sign. However, this is a full moon in Pisces, which has a totally different energetic feel. The sun is lighting up the moon, which is conjunct loosely to Neptune. And these planets are really signifying an ability to connect to the womb, to creation, to intuition, to softness, to purity, from like the beautiful sense of beginning. So like when you're born, how you come in as this like pure, slate, empty slate. And that's really what I'm getting from this, because we've been having kind of a lot of intense energy these last few moon cycles. And so I feel like this is our reprieve, our breath of fresh air, our ability to connect back to our soul when maybe we've had some kind of daunting elements of our life come up, or big life questions and pivots and directions and challenges and facing truths. And now it's the synthesis, the integration, the healing, the rest. And it's almost like the rest is not coming from doing nothing. I really see the rest as coming through creative breakthroughs, through exciting experiences that make us feel like we are expressing ourselves either in new ways, in unexpected ways, in liberating ways. And that's because this moon is making an almost exact sextile to Uranus in the North Node in Taurus. So whatever these kind of creative ventures that can come through with Pisces, or spiritual influences, or energetic kind of uplifting waves, whatever these things are going to help push us further along our path with this North Node. It's going to help us kind of actually ground more into our future and who we want to be, because I feel like it's going to help us carry less dead weight. It's going to help us feel lighter, again, pure, more inspired, and come up with really beautiful ideas and solutions to the things that we want in our life. So if we have been kind of cutting certain things away these last few moons and getting clearer about where we're going, I think that this full moon is a time of really starting to paint the picture, or imagine and fantasize this new version of ourselves, this kind of Courtney 2.0, or whoever you are. And I did pull two cards, which are the 5th house creativity and Jupiter abundance card. And so I feel like this is just really reiterating here that many of us are going to be opening up to a really beautiful expression of ourselves. And Jupiter, I think, is trying to indicate that this is a fortuitous full moon. We can lean into and rely on the things that are coming in right now, because there's a lot less harsh energy happening here. And because I pulled the Jupiter card, I think it's important to talk about where Jupiter is being activated in the chart at this time. So we, first of all, have Mercury retrograde in the sign of Libra. So our mental faculties may be a little bit more confused than usual, which the sun being in Virgo is going to help mitigate. But this full moon is not so much about getting everything okay, so while the sun in Virgo does help us get organized about what's already kind of on our plates, this moon is really about, I think, inspiring us towards the future, since it is making an almost exact sextile with Uranus, which is a planet that's future oriented. And so I think we're sitting here dreaming, fantasizing, imagining, creating our future. And Mercury in Libra in an air sign, it kind of wants to sit there and get more details and get it all hashed out. But there's a lot of different paths and perspectives to consider. And it's also retrograde. So some of its normal function is kind of being slowed down or altered in some way. And so I think that we're having our analytical mind be a little bit less powerful right now so that we can access our more spiritual, inspirational side. And the sun in Virgo is going to help us as an earth sign stay practical and realistic about how all these things can manifest. And then Mercury is going almost like from the sidelines, and I feel like cheering on this process rather than trying to step in and dictate and control, because it's the second that our analytical mind turns on that the imagination really shuts down. And so I feel like Mercury taking a backseat is very important at this time. Mercury is also opposing Jupiter. So the way in which Mercury is stepping up is helping us access the more visionary, broader perspective. So normally Mercury is actually very focused on the details, the things that are finite and have starts and ends, the things that we can conceptualize and put in a box and organize. And this time Mercury opposite Jupiter is actually being the word that came in was threatened, but I hate to say that because it sounds really negative, but being very much encouraged and pushed to see the bigger perspective. It's like sitting there with his microscope, and then all of a sudden somebody like a godlike figure is just ripping the microscope out of his hands, and he's looking up at the beautiful sky and is seeing everything all around him. And so that's what I feel like is happening here. And being in the sign of Libra, opposing Jupiter in the sign of Aries, Mercury still does want to consider like, okay, but if I do this, how is it going to affect everyone? And Jupiter in Aries is like, your soul wants this. Take this adventure. Take it as I'm laying it out. And so I think that this is going to help us step into, again, this big perspective of what this future, what this imagination can help us become, can help us live up to. And it feels grand, it feels big and exciting and very growth oriented. And Jupiter's keyword, expansive, right? So it's what's going to help us kind of reach for the stars in a bigger way. Mercury is also making a trine to Mars and Gemini. So Mercury can kind of get stuck turning its wheels. And the good thing about this is that we have a lot of inspiration coming in, but that doesn't always imply that we're going to take action. We really need a planet like Mars to kind of kick us into gear. And so the fact that Mercury is making a trine to Mars, to me, is indicating that we're going to have this big vision, this imagination, this almost like blissful kind of ecstasy moment of who am I? What do I want? And I'm pulled through my heart to this exciting place. And then I get into a more practical state of how can I fill in this big picture and start working on it without getting caught in the weeds and the details yet, because that's not really what this energy is about. And then with this trine with Mars, it's like, all right, I think I can start to practically kind of figure out how to do this. Sun in Virgo, Mars in Gemini. This is very much, like analytical and practical. And so I feel like this is where we're going to just start putting our boots to the ground and take steps forward to achieve some of the things that we want. And so I think we're going to go out there. We imagine ourselves. And I think we're going to start to see that future self and also reflect on where we are and desire to bridge that gap. And Mars and Gemini is a perfect planet to help us bridge that gap, to help us learn the things that we need to learn, have the conversations that we need to have, make the connections, take the action steps, plan or do whatever we need to do to set things forth. And so I think that this is going to be a beautiful impetus to kind of get us up and get us going. Venus in Virgo is also making a square to Mars and Gemini. So the thing that I'm kind of seeing here in this scenario is that we are imagining this perfect version of our lives, but that doesn't always mean that everyone else fits into that perfectly. So Mercury is retrograde in Libra. So our mind is already kind of focusing on how our decisions will affect other people. And Venus, which is obviously a relationship planet, squaring Mars, is also considering, you know, how are my decisions going to affect my relationships? But at the end of the day, there is a little bit of a conflict here, because Mars in Gemini, while it does want to create connection, Gemini does want to create connection. At the end of the day, it's almost like in a hierarchy of needs for a Gemini. It's not as much as the connection as a level of like curiosity and exploration. And so if the connection serves that bigger purpose. And so we are on a personal journey where we are curious about how to create this vision for ourselves. And so the relationships will have to serve that purpose, or, you know, find a way to fit it in. And it might not fit in as easily as it would for any other time of the year when we don't have this aspect going on. So I don't think it's going to be that bad, because these planets are in signs that are ruled by the same planet. They're both Mercury ruled signs. But sometimes that can be challenging also, because Mercury ruled signs can almost like lack empathy and emotional touch, like the wateriness. But this is a full moon in Pisces, so hopefully that will bring in the empathy, right? But you may find that you have you're using up the reservoirs of emotion and empathy for your dream and your vision, and then when it comes to others kind of fitting into that, maybe you don't have as much left over. Maybe you're a little bit more practical and you're like, well, this is really what I want. My heart is tied to this, and like, take it or leave it kind of thing. And so if you find that you're getting a little bit more frustrated, know that you may have to kind of work with relationships, or even financially, you may have to like rub up against things and find a creative solution to make it all work. And it may cause a little bit of frustration or anger. It's just kind of passion coming out sideways, because this vision wants to be born, and this is the one thing that's causing a little bit of friction for it to kind of burst out of the gate. And so my encouragement here is to be compassionate and understanding of other people, and also to channel this passion into creative ventures, or into, if you are in a relationship, into intimacy, like physical intimacy with that partner. Like one of those avenues in particular, something like visual and creative and stimulating, or something physically stimulating. And I think that's going to help this not come out as a very frustrating event. We also have Mercury opposite Chiron a little bit loosely. So I think that when we are kind of imagining this big, broad perspective and like what we're capable of and our potential is, with Chiron here, there can sometimes be this gut feeling or this gut wrench of like, can I actually do that? It's like we're still able to imagine it, and we want it and we desire it, but we as well will kind of doubt ourselves. And so if you also experience that, just know that that's really normal, and that's actually part of how we're meant to heal our self-confidence and our ability to self-actualize, by having those feelings and moving forward anyway. The last thing I'll mention for the overview before I get into all the signs is the Saturn square Uranus, which is still going on. This has been going on for a really long time, actually. But it's going to get more and more closer and more intense this month in particular. But it's really been just kind of this backdrop story of the old versus the new, the desire to stabilize versus the desire to change, the desire for consistency and the desire for upheaval and liberation and freedom. And so we may have these kind of different elements going on in the backdrop of this imagination that we're having. You know, like, I want to have this brand new beginning, but maybe I can't leap right into it. Maybe I have to have one foot in the old, one foot in the new. And, you know, I want to have a breakup, but I still have to sort all this stuff out with this person before I can have my new beginning. And so it's like you're kind of straddling these two spheres or these two worlds. or even a job. Like I want a new job and I see myself at this new job, but I still have to make money now until I get that. And so you're living almost like in the dissatisfaction with the old, but having to be coupled to it or married to it. And so you don't want to be too uncomfortable there. You want to be uncomfortable because you want to still reach for the new, but not so uncomfortable that you're like needing to crawl out of your skin. And so this is something that we can help kind of ourselves through as we start to feel into what we want. How can I allow myself to really open up to what this new beginning is without rushing out prematurely from this old phase of my life? And so most of this year and all of last year was kind of having this tinge to it. And we can feel that on a societal level because these are societal planets and outer planets. So they are really dealing with more of a collective issue. Whereas as a society, we're wanting to grow from our pain and our past with all these really difficult experiences that we've had, but we can't just like leap out of them. There's a transition. And so that is what I'm seeing for this overview. Make sure that you guys listen to your sun and your rising sign and maybe even your moon sign if that resonates. I definitely like to listen to both, although the rising sign is going to be the most accurate using whole sign houses. So I will see you guys there. All right, up first we have Aries Rising. So for you guys, the sun is in Virgo and it's opposite the moon in Pisces in your 12th house, sextiling Uranus in your 2nd house. So I think that this is some of the most beautiful energy to have. In the 12th house, the 12th house is usually a harder house, but given that this is a full moon in Pisces and Neptune, these are basically planets that feel very comfortable in the 12th house. They have very similar significations. And so what happens is it becomes a cleansing or a purity that is even more emphasized. That's really what I was getting for the entire full moon, but I think that since for you it's in the 12th house, it's almost like you're getting plugged in to a spiritual outlet or tuned to a spiritual radio where you are going to experience much more beautiful, inspiring, uplifting, purifying energy, whether you are aware of it or not. And I think that the more that you allow yourself to have actually some time alone, the more you will be able to tune into this energy and best utilize it. But all of us right now are meant to be coming up with an imagination or a vision of how we see our lives moving forward. For you, this full moon is making a sextile to Uranus in the 2nd house. So maybe there is some change in what you value. That maybe some of what you imagine can help you realize how to align with a better value system or to be more confident and more sure and more secure internally within yourself. Or maybe this full moon offers you the gift of a new financial path opening up, or a new kind of physical thing to work on, or a new skill to develop. These are all areas in which Uranus in the 2nd house can basically set you up for more success later down the road. You guys also got the Dragonfly card, which I feel like it was kind of saying, emphasizing the lightness of this animal, the lightness and the purity. So I think you guys are going to be feeling a sense of optimism that maybe you haven't felt this strongly in a while, or maybe your optimism has really been building and is really reaching this crescendo point where you are just fully embracing and satisfied with life. And there is much more of a trust with life than maybe you've been experiencing in the last year. And so I think that's gonna really pay off for you with this Jupiter card. I think you guys are really going to start to reap some rewards of having faith that the universe has your back and just lifting up your vibration to a level of being able to attract some of the things that you are desiring, that you are imagining at this full moon. Mercury is retrograde in your 7th house in Libra, and it's trining Mars and Gemini in the 3rd house. And okay, so because Venus is also in Virgo in your 6th house, squaring Mars in the 3rd, I do kind of get this feeling that maybe there is a potential for arguments here with Venus. I skipped ahead to like the Venus transit, but I'll come back to the Mercury one in a second. With Venus in fall in your 6th house, I think that this can make work relationships a little bit more uncomfortable, specifically because of this square and the fact that Venus is not strong here. And so work relationships are almost emphasized, or at least relationships with whom you share certain obligations. And that doesn't have to be a work relationship, but maybe it's, someone else that you work with to get something done, a collaborator, a friend. Maybe you are taking care of someone and they're involved in a process that you are in. Regardless, whatever kind of relationship where you are kind of collaborating, with this square to Mars in the 3rd house, there can be conflicts in terms of ideas of what one person wants and what another person wants. There could be more of like office gossip, or I don't know, just in general, a little bit more tension and disagreement. And so if you find that you're a little bit more triggered in that area, it's really beneficial to, I think, relax and not become impulsive. And I think given the softness of this moon in general, it's going to help you do that. Because Pisces is a very soft and quite nurturing and loving sign. Mercury, as I mentioned, I'll come back to, is in Libra on your 7th retrograde. So this is where I'm like, okay, there is kind of this greater emphasis on working together. Mercury also can have a lot to do with like contracts. So literally signing a contract with somebody, clarifying things with somebody, having difficult conversations, or passionate, meaningful conversations that move things forward. I think that it's through others that you're going to help kind of get maybe some of your next steps on what to do. But I also feel like others could play a role of difficulty as well. So maybe somebody gives you an idea and you like move forward with that, but then there's someone else in the workplace that's against the idea. I'm just kind of giving examples and you can fit it to your own life, but there is a facilitation of conversations that will help action orient you. And there is a little bit of charge and maybe frustration there as well. Mercury opposite Jupiter in your 1st house may indicate that these relationships can help trigger a greater vision within you, and trigger in a good way. Like they are bringing up something that then is almost like this domino effect of all these ideas kind of lighting up in my mind of what I have the potential to achieve. And so this Jupiter card here, I think, is really emphasizing this like greater visionary status that you're having right now. So you are encouraged to have some conversations with people, if you're really like sinking your teeth into a specific idea, talk to people about it. But just also know that some of these conversations, or maybe conversations with your partner or people that you work with, could be a little fraught with friction as well. But they're still worthwhile. It's still worth kind of working things out. So that's what I'm seeing for you. This seems like a really, really nice one. Again, please take some time alone to sit with yourself and your energy to allow the messages to come through. So I hope that you enjoy this one. If it relates to you, if it resonates, please let me know by commenting down below. I read all of your comments and they always mean a lot to me. And if you want an astrology reading, you can check me out at willsbloom.com. Thanks. Bye. All right, up next I have my beautiful Taurus Rising. For you guys, this full moon in Pisces has the sun and Virgo in your 5th house and the moon and Neptune in your 11th house. This is making a sextile to Uranus and the North Node in your 1st house. So this feels very uplifting for you. It is uplifting for everyone, but when it's hitting such beautiful houses and activating Uranus in the 1st, I am sensing some leaps forward, some shackles being thrown to the ground, some new opportunities coming in through the way of others. And that's because this full moon, which is usually about a culmination or a presentation of the full offering, is happening in your 11th house of benefactors. And so I do think that many of you, given that Neptune is here and this is a Pisces moon, could have the potential to energetically manifest through visualization, through intention, through mantras, meditation, anything that you're open to. You guys could potentially manifest somebody coming into your life that will put you on a certain track, that will give you an opportunity, a leg up, a hand up, and with the sextile to Uranus in the first, something that will help you break past a maybe almost invisible barrier that you've been bumping up against. And I think you guys will feel this lightness as you leap up and are lifted up by somebody else's history or money or effort that they've already put in, that you can kind of almost ride their coattails. And that might not be the same for everyone, but I am getting a general sense that it's going to be through others, through your community, through your sense of belonging, through someone that it has reached something that you haven't reached. It's through these kinds of situations and these people that you guys are going to reach a breakthrough. And I think it's going to feel, again, very liberating, very light, very free. And I'm getting just a lot of happy energy with this dolphin card. The dolphin, I feel like, represents this full moon. I mean, I did pull the card for that. And so to me, the dolphin is a very passionate, creative, lively, intelligent energy. And they also swim in pods. So they're very much emotionally and socially connected to each other. And so I think that you guys are going to find that you are turned on in a way of joy and optimism and creativity and spirituality through your pod, through your mental, social, energetic connection to others. So really, I guess, put yourself in the way of that. Like, say yes to the party, say yes to that lunch date, go to that conference or convention. Allow yourself to be surrounded by people who do inspire you or who have the potential to inspire you. You guys also have Mercury retrograde in Libra in your 6th house, making a trine to Mars in Gemini in your 2nd. So it makes a lot of sense why I pulled this Earth stability card. With Mars and Gemini in your 2nd house, which is going to be here for the next 7 months, you're going to be getting a extra dose or extra emphasis on creating financial security for yourself. You're very motivated by this, and Mars in Gemini is hustle energy. I will do what it takes, talk to who it takes, learn what it takes to get something done, to create financial security for myself, to buy a house, to get a job, to put money into savings, to maybe learn about the stock market. You'll all have your different expressions of this, but there is a push and an emphasis onto this. With Mercury in Libra in the 6th house, I think it's helping you get a lot more organized. So how can I create a structure within my routine? How can I apply for jobs or work within a company, or maybe get another job, take on some greater workload, collaborate on something with others? How can I do these types of things to create more financial security for myself? If this is a more emotional plane, maybe you are good on money, maybe what you're doing is working on your physical and mental health to become more emotionally stable and confident within yourself, to create value, self-worth through daily actions. And it's sometimes it's just by making the right choices that we feel the best about ourselves. Mercury is also opposite Jupiter in Chiron in the 12th house. So I think that you guys may be kind of battling things that are not visible for you in this process of becoming really disciplined and practical in your search for stability. So whether that's confidence or money, many of you may have to overcome like certain obstacles of the self-sabotage or ways in which we become unrealistic or ungrounded or like doubtful of ourselves. A lot of that is being healed because Jupiter is a really positive planet and it's been moving through your 12th house. It's encouraging you to go on this journey of what has been unknown to you, what has been unseen but holding you back. And it's helping you and encouraging you and pushing you to sift through all these old files, to check in with yourself, to understand these hidden aspects of the self if possible. And so this full moon, this full moon, but specifically Mercury opposite Jupiter, is going to help you make some huge advancements, I believe, in this area. And because Mercury is in Libra and it's trining Mars in Gemini, I think it's really going to ground a lot of things that you have maybe been too airy or unrealistic or uncertain or unseen. It's going to ground a lot of these things. And I think that's really going to be a game changer for you. You guys also have Venus in Virgo, which is in fall in your 5th house, making a square to Mars in the 2nd. So there may be ways in which your relationships or your current way of expressing yourself, like dressing yourself or, buying things that you enjoy to adorn yourself with, or even just like the way that you express yourself socially, like going out to drinks, having food, taking trips. There may be ways in which, or even a business sometimes, or children, that's a huge thing. There may be ways in which you have spent a bit of money in this area of your life that is in conflict with your current desire of achieving greater sense of security. And again, this is on a very physical, practical plane. So it might be different, a little bit different for all of you guys. So many of you guys may find that you have to have these kind of areas of your life come into friction, and maybe even have some arguments with friends, with your partner about kind of how to navigate spending in order to get things in line. And that's okay if there is that friction, but it's requiring you to adapt and make changes to your current way of being or doing things to actually put preference to your ultimate wish and your ultimate goal. If this is on a more mental plane with Venus and Virgo in the 5th house, you may be really desired to be witnessed, and especially for what you have done for others. Venus and Virgo really wants to feel like they are appreciated for the work that they've put in and acknowledged and admired or seen in some capacity. And the square with Mars in the 2nd, it's almost asking you to find this validation from within, to witness yourself, and to do things anyway. And so it might kind of cause, again, some of this friction of but I want this external validation to fill me up. And the Mars in the 2nd house is wanting you to do that internally. So it is a month about creating stability for yourself, both internally and monetarily. And I hope that you guys enjoy this one. If it resonated, please let me know by commenting down below. I read all of your comments and they mean the world to me. And I hope you have a blessed day. If you want a reading from me, check me out at willsbloom.com in the description box down below. Bye. All right, up next we have my beautiful Gemini Risings and Gemini Suns. So for you guys, this full moon in Pisces is happening in your 10th house with Neptune there as well. And then the sun will be opposite it in Virgo in your 4th house. So this is lighting up your career sector at this time. And it's helping you guys become more inspired in this area of your life to see something for the future possibility that you haven't seen before. And it's making a sextile to Uranus in the 12th house. So I almost feel like it's trying to liberate you from some past when I see Uranus in the 12th. And this kind of newness that wants to come from this vision, this sense of inspiration and beauty. It has to unlock you from something that has held you back. There may be some part of you that has felt like you are not enough, like you have self-sabotaged, like you're just uncertain if you can do things. You've had failures in the past. You've experienced loss and you want to protect yourself. And so I'm really getting the sense with this full moon, with the sextile and Uranus in the 12th, is it's having to emotionally liberate you from this bondage, from this cage that you may have been in without even realizing it, because the 12th house is largely subconscious. And so I think many of us will have to kind of go back and question, have I been limiting myself unconsciously? And I think we will specifically question it at this time, because this full moon is inquiring about this grand future. It's calling on fantasy and imagination and inspiration and joy. And all of those things are unbridled and they reach for the stars. They're boundless. And that can then trigger the part of us that is bound, that is uncertain, that is like pretty much thinking that we're just going to repeat the past. And so we're going to have all of this come up at this time for a beautiful liberation. And I think the way to liberate is to trust fall into this experience. If you want something, if you're inspired by something, then move towards it and trust that the universe has your back, and that all of these little twists and turns are ways of getting you to your desired goal in a much more authentic and purposeful way, rather than stop signs, rather than detours that are trying to hold you back. And I think that this full moon hopefully will help you start to see those things. You guys also have Mercury, your planetary ruler, retrograde in Libra in your 5th house. And you also have Mars in your 1st house. And these planets are trining each other. So you already have quite a lot going on. So your ruler is retrograde. It's a little bit more confused than usual. You've got Mars, which is a malefic planet, an irritating planet, but also a passionate, inspiring planet in your sign for the next 7 months until March of 2023. So you guys are really you're receiving a lot of energy, and you're having to kind of process a lot of energy. And one thing that's really interesting is that I pulled the armadillo card, and I am getting this sense of needing to like preserve and protect your energy and create a sense of safety and security for yourself. You, with Mars in your 1st house, can maybe find more things that are irritating you. You might have more combative experiences, but equally so, you'll have more things come into your life that really fascinate you, and you might almost start to spread yourself too thin because of your multiplied interests. And you are Gemini rising, so you tend to follow those trails. And so there is a protecting here of what is really important and what should not be like dwindling away because of dispersed energy, or protecting yourself from, and like what's really important to you from outside attacks. With Mars in the 1st can sometimes elicit that. And it's also a time in which you might fortify yourself physically and kind of bulk up, go to the gym, feel more active. And I think with Mercury in the 5th house trining Mars in the 1st, it's telling you to like, yeah, maybe you want to look good, and that's great. Like, go out and take care of your health, and maybe it's for vain reasons, and that's fine. Or maybe you do that because you want to eat a bunch of ice cream when you get home, and that's fine. Mercury in the 5th house is also saying, I know you're feeling really inspired, so like, let's jump into it. Let's try all these different things. And this is what's going to help you figure yourself out. Mars only typically spends about 2 months in a sign. So the fact that it's spending 7 months in your sign right now is not a mistake. It is a divine redirectioning where it's bringing a lot of opportunities onto your plate. So it's like you're at a buffet and trying all the different types of foods, and there's no punishment for having to try these foods. And watch my Mars video, because there is something that you need to know about Mars retrograde. So it's very important for you guys, so make sure you check that one out on my channel after this. But when you're at a buffet, you can try everything. There's not going to be like this huge bill at the end because you got all these different types of foods. And so I think this is really important to know. You're gathering your resources and tools and ideas, and then during the retrograde, consolidating and understanding what you want to hone in on. So with also with your planetary ruler opposite Jupiter in the 11th house, you guys are absolutely tapped into your vision for the future. You guys may even be like connecting with different types of people and getting inspiring new ideas from them as well. So I think that you guys are very much tuned into like the social sphere, and to others helping you express yourself and find out yourself during the 7-month period. But again, we don't want to go way too overboard. And again, I think that's when the retrograde will really help us. And this armadillo, I think, is really pointing this can be like your animal this month. Maybe kind of meditate on this energy, how the armadillo is ensuring its safety for the future by having this tough exterior. And so Mars coming through your first, causing so much stimulation and new experiences, and maybe sometimes people coming at you and these irritants, all these things are preparing you and toughening you up and getting you ready for what's to come for you, for this energy to be channeled in a really effective way. But to me, I'm getting the sense that right now it's not necessarily being channeled. You might find that you have lots of loose ends. You might find that you have lots of pipes where water's over here running, water's over there running, and it's all kind of spilling out. And I think it's okay for that to be happening right now, because as I mentioned, I feel like we're really going to see us kind of tighten up during Virgo, during the retrograde. And so this void of course moon is saying that nothing will come from this situation. When something occurs during a void of course moon, it's like it doesn't amount to anything. And so I feel like that's actually good news in this case, because what it's indicating to me is that you can dabble in all these things without it having a negative impact. Like, it's not going to amount to something painful or bad. And you are having Mars in your sign. Like, you are meant to be stimulated. You are meant to be energized. And Gemini is interested in a lot of things. So we don't need to go against the natural urge here. And I think you'll start to feel during retrograde when it's time to start tightening things up and consolidating, as I mentioned. But now it's okay if things don't amount to anything, if you're just exploring. And I think that this will ultimately help you within your career. Maybe some of the things that you're imagining right now, maybe some of them will happen and some of them won't amount to anything. And that is okay. You don't have to have everything that you spend time on mean something or become something really fortuitous, because I think that ultimately, even if it's just a few things that come in, these experiences in general will help inform you later on and will make you a much better, more well-rounded, more fulfilled person, because you've tried all these things and you know what's for you. And that's kind of the long-term thing. You guys also have Venus in Virgo, which is in fall in your 4th house, squaring Mars in the 1st. So this might also have to do with the Armadillo card, where you might get a little bit more emotional. There may be some more kind of combative arguments with people around you. And there's, again, a need to kind of create a sense of security, to create a tougher skin, to be able to handle these conversations, these disagreements, and just kind of move through life and become stronger and better as a result of it. So that is what I'm seeing for you, Gemini. If that resonates, please let me know by commenting down below. I read all of the comments and they always mean a lot to me. And if you want an astrology reading, definitely check me out at willisbum.com, and I hope you have a great day. Bye. Up next, we have my beautiful Cancer risings. This full moon in Pisces is happening in your 9th house, and the sun is opposite it in Virgo in the 3rd house. So first of all, definitely a big time when we have the sun in the 3rd house to kind of get our mind churning. And then on top of that, we have Mars in Gemini. So you guys may have felt like you're a little bit more of a chatterbox or mentally active or very busy and having lots of trips or ideas. It's just a much more stimulating time for everyone, but especially you with the sun in your 3rd house. With the full moon happening with Neptune in particular in Pisces in the 9th, this is a time in which you may feel so inspired. And I've been saying this to everyone, but this is going to be especially true for the spiritual houses, the 12th and the 9th house. It's even better for the 9th than the 12th because it's a house that we can integrate and fully access. It's like we can actually have faith and believe, and it's not just something that's washing over us that we're having to energetically perceive, but we're kind of unaware, and we have to meditate to access it. Like, the 9th house is there. The 9th house is our vision, our ideals, our philosophy, our integrity, how we really want to be as a person, how we want to impact the world, how we want the world to impact us. It's very much like where we go out and kind of touch foreign lands, things outside of us, just through our through our moral compass and our inner essence, where the 10th house is more so how we touch the world through our achievements. And so I think that in many ways, you guys are going to feel extremely uplifted at this time. And I think you're going to feel like your social connections in particular are the area of your life that is going to feel really enhanced. It's almost like your vibe attracts your tribe saying. I think that ultimately with this Moon and Neptune in the 9th house, your vibe is going to be very high. I think you're going to be in this state of wonder and amazement at the things around you. I think that you're going to feel hopeful and engaged and excited about learning or studying or doing new things that you haven't done before. And with this moon making a sextile to Uranus in the 11th, it's through these personal explorations that you may meet some other people of like-minded interests. And I think that area of your life is really going to start to flourish. It's also possible that you could, through connections, start to find these interests, but I do feel like for most of us it will be the opposite way. I think that you'll start to pursue or study something that is like in line with your sense of optimism at this time. Like, oh, I feel expansive when I go here. I'm going to continue to go there. I'm going to take this course or read this book or go to this place. And with the sextile to Uranus in the 11th house, I really feel like it's going to give you, again, some like-minded people, some friends, some support, and it's going to make you feel more like a social butterfly. And it may be connections that make you feel more like yourself, like they are seeing you in your best light. And this is because I think you are, again, raising your vibration to such an extent that the people that you are attracting and the way that they're viewing you is going to be from such a high vibration, such a positive light, that I think you're going to want to keep cultivating relationships like that. And you guys also have Mercury in Libra, which is retrograde in your 4th house, trining Mars and Gemini in your 12th, and opposing Jupiter in your 10th. So you guys may also have a little bit of a conflict here because there is so much stimulating and social energy for you, a lot of social energy. But you are Cancer risings after all, right? You are inherently needing some time and space alone. There is a sensitive nature to you that needs to be sheltered in some ways, or at least have that space to kind of regenerate and be yourself. And so you may have a little bit of this conflict where you are, with Mercury opposite Jupiter in the 10th, biting off a little bit more than you can chew. And you're really excited about all the things that you can do, especially career-wise. Maybe you're excited about taking on a lot of new job offers or taking on more work or up-leveling work in some way, but then also feeling like, oh, I need some time to kind of process my own things within the home. I need to sit with my own emotions, or I need to deal with my family relationships, or even really basic stuff like tending to the garden at my house. So you may feel like there is a little bit of this polarity happening here of my internal world, the kind of, even within the home, it could be still social, but either within the home or internally within yourself, maybe being somewhat at odds with the kind of external world of this new career options, these new friends, these growth experiences. You may feel like you have to figure out how to balance them. And that can take some time. And Mercury is also making a trine to Gemini in the 12th house. So I do think that this is encouraging you to... Because Mars in Gemini is like a very heady, intellectual, stimulating energy. But being in the 12th house, it's channeling it in a direction that's less heady and also like less physical than Mars in Gemini usually likes to be. So I kind of want to pull a card on that one specifically for you guys, because I'm curious like what message wants to come through specifically around this, because it is a bit of an oxymoron. And essentially what oxymorons do in astrology is counterbalance and create less of an intensity in that sign and that planet. So you're going to feel maybe a little bit less heady, or you could even get the heady aspects where you are, I totally forgot what I was saying there. Okay, you got Knight of Pentacles and Four of Pentacles, and then you got the Virgo card. So this is interesting. I'm getting like a very practical, grounded kind of message for this planet here. So maybe there is something about bringing what is in the ethereal realm and the energetic realm and the mental plane and all of this down into the world. And I think that maybe the message here for you is to do your best to kind of work on creating more density and like consistency, because maybe Mars in Gemini in the 12th can dissipate quite a bit of energy. Mars in the 12th house is already like less energy, just a little bit. And yeah, so I feel like what it's trying to tell you to do is kind of make it solid as much as you can. I think it's almost like a piece of advice here rather than describing what Mars in the 12th house is. And so I think that also explains a lot with Virgo, which is an earth sign, very practical, very grounded. How can I take these ideas, these inspirations, these things, and create something out of them? How can I get future money, make a plan for them? How can I really like solidify something here instead of allowing it to remain in the ether, or instead of just talking about it, or instead of just feeling it? Like, how can I kind of catch it, catch it in a bottle? You guys also have Venus in Virgo and fall in the 3rd house, squaring Mars in the 12th. So this might talk about that specific dilemma where maybe there are points in time in which, you know, Venus in Virgo really wants to take some practical actions, but then Mars in the 12th is like distracting you or dissipating that energy. So this, I think, is the exact thing that we've been talking about, that you may have to kind of figure out how to balance this month in particular. So that's what I'm seeing for you, Cancer Rising. If that resonates, please let me know by liking and commenting down below. Your comments mean so much to me. I love to hear how it applies to your life. It always helps my practice, and it truly is one of the complete highlights of my day. So I always read them, even though I'm quite slow to respond. And if you want an astrology reading from me, you can always check me out at willisboom.com or using the links down below. Thanks, bye. Up next, we have my beautiful Leo rising. So for you guys, this full moon in Pisces is happening in your 8th house, and it is conjunct Neptune there as well. So this might be a highly emotional time for you. And it does have the potential, I think, to create a lot of change in your life with this solar eclipse. The sun is in the 2nd house, urging you to create a plot line towards greater financial success. And the moon being so watery and in a traditionally Scorpionic house, the 8th house, I feel like there is a huge degree of emotional release and rebirth that's happening in order to help you reach more stability and more success. And I say that because this full moon is making a sextile to Uranus in the 10th house, which is this solar eclipse energy here. It's creating some radical change, possibly overnight, possibly unexpected, but definitely very freeing, very exciting in the area of your goals or your career. And so there may be something that you've kind of been thinking about but uncertain about, or you know, you've wanted to make certain changes or certain decisions. And I think that this moon is going to help maybe heal any emotional things going on that could be blocking you from reaching towards that success. And maybe it's feelings of inadequacy. Maybe it's feeling like you can't fully take charge in a situation. Maybe it's feeling like, I don't know, it could be a number of things, but this is more the emotional level. And I say that because it's so Piscean and Neptune and moon and water. There's so much going on that's very much emotional. So I think regardless of what happens, it is going to be a highly emotional moon. But it could also be something that is much more practical that has emotion infused into it. So maybe there is something regarding like loans or debt, finances that involve other people and other people's contracts and what you sign with them. There is something that could happen there where something can have some type of breakthrough that will then push you forward in your career, that will then give you some amount of success. And it is going to be emotionally charged, whatever this is. There is so much water. It's not a very like factual kind of thing. It's like, I am feeling this, right? Like I am excited about this. I am dreaming about this. I am manifesting this. And so I think that wherever this is taking you, you are wholeheartedly invested in its direction. You guys also have Mercury retrograde in Libra in your 3rd house, trining Mars and Gemini in your 11th house. This can be extremely beneficial for, I guess, like getting those people on board if that is necessary. Mars is a malefic, so it can sometimes bring some friction even with positive aspects like this. However, I'm really getting the sense that Mars is energizing us to take action forward, and being in the house of your community and your network, I feel like what's happening here is that certain communications can happen that will then ignite people in your network to get together and create some sort of action towards what you want. If this is related towards that, if it's related to that contract, this could be you talking to someone, getting a friend on board, and then you're going into a business together and you get the loan and have career success. Or it could be something like that's totally unrelated, where you have these kind of breakthroughs in your career, where on the other hand, you are just having a lot more connections being made. So maybe new friends coming into your life, or new connections as a result of pursuing some of these career options. And so there is just a lot of kind of stimulation in the area of your network and connections. And it can maybe help you move forward in this way. Mercury is also opposite Jupiter. And so they're in the 9th house. And so I feel like you guys are kind of having this little oscillation of this dance between being very practical and kind of centered around what you're doing right here, right now, how to get everything done, while also tending to the future, while also tending to the bigger picture, while not losing sight of why something matters or what you're trying to accomplish. And so there may be some oscillation between this area of your life. I pulled a dog card for you guys, which to me gives me this sense that this month is going to be laced with loyalty. When we think of a dog, we think of people, like if this is a person, I'm thinking of someone being agreeable, saying yes, listening to you, following directions, the lights being green in that sense with another person. And so if you're signing some kind of contract or creating new relationships, I feel like it's going to be something that is easy, where people are on the same page. And if there is a hierarchy where the hierarchy makes a lot of sense, and like you or the other person will just like listen to the other one. And it's like, there's not a disagreement. There's a loyalty there. Like, I will do what you say. We get along, we agree, and I'm loyal to you. Like, let's commit on this thing together. Let's step forward together. Let's create a bond together. So that's really beautiful. However, we all are experiencing some kind of conflict with Venus, which I think for you will be mostly financial, since it's in your financial house. It could be relationships. You could still have specifically this come up around money within the relationships. You might have a little bit of like disagreement there, a little bit of tension there. But again, what I'm seeing with this dog card is that it becomes resolved. Like, people end up on the same page. And so if you are having to work out some kind of financial thing with somebody else, I think that it will eventually work out. But maybe to just make sure that with this dog card that everyone is loyal to the other person's success, and that you have kind of everyone's interests at heart. Because sometimes, like, the 11th house is really about this sense of equality for all, but having a malefic here maybe can create a sense of inequality. And so that is something that I'll mention there. Okay, so that's really what I'm seeing for you, Leo Rising. If this resonates, please let me know by commenting down below. I read all of the comments, and they mean so much to me, you guys. Like, they really are the best part of my day, besides like taking a walk with the dogs. But yeah, those two things are just the best. There's actually a lot of great things, but anywho, it just really lights me up to see a comment come in and I get an email about it. And I don't ever really go on the YouTube platform, the creator platform, to respond to them, except when I upload a new episode, which I have an editor who does that. So that's why I'm so slow to get back to you guys. But they just make my life. I always read them. And if you have any particular things come through about how it relates to your life, that really helps me as well. And if you write hate comments, then just leave. Like, just leave. Because I'm a person and it hurts my feelings. And yeah, if you want a reading, check me out at willisbloom.com or in the links down below. And I hope you have a great day. Bye. All right, up next we have my beautiful Virgo risings. This full moon for you is happening in your 7th house, conjunct Neptune, and it is in the sign of your polarity, Pisces, which means that the sun is in your 1st house of Virgo. So let's first start off there, because it is significant to have the sun in your 1st house, or to be, if you're watching this for your sun sign, to be crossing over your sun. It is beginning a new chapter, a time of more recognition and a little bit of a mini rebirth in a way. And that's because the sun, when it brings light, it can kind of burn things away that were old, that were dead, and it can give you the clarity about where you're going in the future. It's almost like the sun is the king that whispers in your ear and gives you your directive. And so it is substantial to have it in the 1st house. You may feel more purposeful right now. You may feel like you have even a lot of ideas, because Mars is in Gemini in your 10th house, and we're going to get to that in a second. But you might feel very stimulated in your career and thinking about all these different things. But you might just feel like you are plugged in or tuned in to your path right now, to your life, to your purpose, to your ambition, to your sense of self, your sense of self-worth as well. And I think that there is some great healing that can happen as a result of this taking place. As I mentioned, the moon and Neptune are in Pisces in the opposite sign, the 7th house. So this can bring a lot more beauty and healing specifically to relationships. And so you might feel like really tuned into your career, but there is like a brand new chapter here that is not starting, but that is kind of showing itself or culminating. There is something, I think, more so being brought to your attention is really what I want to say in the area of relationships. And because this is in the sign of Pisces, because Neptune is involved, there is a spiritual and emotional dynamic where we are becoming sensitized, vulnerable, trusting, and I almost feel like opening up and relying emotionally on another person. And this could be any kind of person in your life of significance. What's interesting is that I'm also getting, I'm getting this Chiron healing card, which I think is coming through your relationships. But I'm also getting this really kind of fierce, protective Black Panther energy. So I'm pulling a spirit animal for us to represent our month. And this Black Panther card is coming in very strong. And so I think that, let me actually read to you what it was saying online that I saw. Black Panthers choose to chase away their fear and walk in the path of courage and fierceness. They are crafty and they are great at convincing people to get things done. So, and for them to get things done. So I'm seeing this ability here to... The Black Panther card in particular is talking a lot about, to me, relational instincts. So like a fierceness, we feel a fierceness because there is usually something or someone like in our way or pushing a boundary, and we have to be like, oh, this is my boundary, I say no. And then as well as convincing people, that's a relational talent. That's a relational instinct. And so I think that many of the energies that are kind of coming through you at this full moon are going to ignite these relational instincts where you are maybe really great at getting people inspired by your ideas, getting them on board, convincing them that this is the right thing to do, or maybe even attracting an audience with Mars and Gemini in the 10th house, kind of getting your name out there, getting your word out there, getting some recognition by being loud, by being fierce, by being dominant, by trying, but not just like overriding people, but being dominant in the way that I'm confident, I know my skills, I will take leadership, I will give others direction, and then people will just kind of defer to this Black Panther energy. And that's why I feel like there's some great healing happening around confidence with this Chiron card and with the sun in your first house, because I feel like you guys are ultimately just allowing yourself to own this really passionate and assertive version of yourself. And others are starting to recognize it from the outside. Others are seeing that light within you. And this full moon for you guys is making a sextile to Uranus in your 9th house. So you guys are really going to get this sense of personal belief. I think the universe is really trying to tell you that you have this, you've got this. And I think it's helping you also kind of get things in order. So it's not just like, I believe in myself and like, that's great. It's like, I'm gonna take charge and be this kind of figurehead or this leader. And again, that just like assert yourself essentially in order to move into a certain direction. And so I really see you guys taking that liberty, having that agency here, and not holding yourself back, not feeling like you can't achieve something, no one's going to listen to you, you're not worthwhile, or any of the insidious, doubtful thoughts that we have about ourselves. I think those are really falling away, especially because Mercury is retrograde, which is your ruling planet. It's retrograde in Libra in the 2nd house, opposing both Jupiter and Chiron and Aries in the 8th house. So leaps and bounds of healing here, where you feel like I am worthy of this. I can achieve this. Like the past doesn't have to indicate anything for me. I don't have to worry about being vulnerable. I can trust others and also be fiercely protective of myself when necessary. And that's when we know we can trust ourselves. When we can really trust ourselves, it becomes easier to trust others because we know who to trust, who to let in, who to rely on, who not to. And we trust that even if we get hurt, we can pick ourselves back up. And so I feel like you guys are building up this strong sense of self-trust and self-worth. It's helping you really push down those old barriers and forcefully kind of push yourself into your career and make yourself heard with Mars and Gemini in the 10th house, because Mercury in Libra is trining Mars and Gemini in the 10th house. So it's as if immediately once you get this injection of confidence and sense of security, it's impacting your visibility. It's impacting your leadership skills, your entrepreneurial skills, your inventiveness within the career sector. You may also create wonderful new streams of income and have lots of beautiful ideas to help generate this, because you're not blocking as much energetically, just assuming you can't do it, stopping yourself before it can emerge. And so I think that you guys are really going to just feel, I think you're going to feel empowered. I think that's exactly the word. Venus is also in your sign, in your first house, squaring Mars in the 10th house. So I feel like this is a sense of friction. Let me pull a card on this one, because Venus square Mars can be a little bit challenging, but just given these angles, I almost feel like, this is going to be so good for you. I guess the feeling that I'm getting is with Venus in your first house, you might be really prioritizing your, you might be really prioritizing your emotional connections and relationships and like how you look, like harmony. That might be really important to you. But then there's like this fierceness coming through your career with this Black Panther card. Like, I will have what I want. I will be competitive. I will fight for it. I'm going to go after my goals, and I don't really care if I look bad. And so there's these two kind of sides of you that are a little bit at odds, that have some friction, that need to create harmony through a creative solution. And I ultimately see you becoming victorious and using this emotional energy to push yourself through inspiration, instead of like giving in to be like, oh, I can't be so loud. It's like, I care what others think, to a degree, but I really care about how this makes me feel and what I really value in life. And what I value is XYZ, and that's why I'm going to go make this happen for myself. And I really see with this Ace of Pentacles, you're going to have some potential new financial opportunities come in through those experiences. So very, very exciting one, very big one for you guys. I think you're going to feel extremely liberated with this sextile to Uranus in the 9th house. And you may even feel like you're getting some kind of divine lift up and support that you haven't gotten in a while. And so I think this is going to give you this reset and this hope that you can continue onward on your path. And it's almost encouraging you to embody this Black Panther and not be scared to own your desires. So that is what I see for you. Empowerment, owning your desires, going after it, Virgo Rising. I hope that you enjoy this. I know that I will. And I hope that you guys have a beautiful day. If it resonates, please let me know by commenting down below. I read every single one of the comments. And as I always say, they make my day. They really do make my day. If you're going to write a hate comment, then you can just leave. And if you want astrology reading, check me out at lizboom.com, and have a great one. Bye. All right, up next we have my beautiful Libra risings. For you guys, this full moon in Pisces is happening in your 6th house, which means that the sun is currently in the opposite sign in Virgo in your 12th house. So I do have a friend who has Libra rising who just got sick, which, I mean, you don't have to get sick every time your sun goes to the 12th house, but it does kind of lower your immunity and maybe make you a little bit more tired and sometimes less driven or more confused. So if you kind of experience any of those things, what it's trying to do is ultimately have you turn inward to have some self-reflection, which will ultimately open you up to something much bigger, much greater, that is trying to brew underneath the surface. But when we're super active and out there, we have to almost be kind of set back and put back in our homes in a purposeful way for the universe to do its magic on us in a softer and gentler way where we're listening. And so this moon is conjunct Neptune in the 6th house, which is also a house of health. And Neptune in the 6th house can also kind of bring, can sometimes bring like health stuff, but that's not going to always be the case. It depends on your chart. But the moon conjunct Neptune here is very interesting because the 6th house is, oftentimes I see a house very stimulated in people with physical or mental maladies. And when I say maladies, I really just mean like when you're experiencing overwork, or you're feeling overloaded or stressed or anxious, or you have maybe OCD or ADHD or chronic anxiety. These things kind of come up and when you have an active 6th house. And so having the moon and Neptune here in a very Piscean energy might feel very healing for these emotional or physical maladies. So if you feel like a little bit out of sync with yourself, again, I think it's very, very purposeful. And I think ultimately what it's going to help you do is connect more with something else that these exterior things are distracting you from. And so I think that the Pisces energy, the softness of Neptune, is allowing for a healing and a shedding of this built up residue. We get this psychic, energetic residue, and I think that we get sick or anxious because we're trying to get rid of it. We're trying to shake it off and feel differently, experience different things. There might be even entities and things that attach to us. Who knows? I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what you guys believe either. I'd be curious actually if you comment down below what your beliefs are with that. But the reason I say that is because I pulled the lizard card as your card of your spirit animal for this month. And the lizard quite literally sheds its skin in order to become anew, in order to have renewed sensory contact with the external world. And so what it's built up on the outside has become faded, has become maybe jaded, tainted, old. You know, it needs to be recycled and let go. And so I think here that's what's happening for you guys. There may be this process of letting go, and it could come in on a very physical, mental level, or maybe it's more of a practical way, or an energetic way that it comes up. But there is this process of, I think, shedding something so that there can be a lightness and an inspiration that really comes through. And this Moon and Neptune is also making a sextile almost exactly to Uranus in your 8th house, which is the house of death and rebirth. And so when I'm talking about shedding, this is just like the perfect kind of nail in the head with this here. It's like, what happens when you die and are reborn? You're given a new slate, a new body. And I don't think it's going to be the case that everything in your life is going to be brand new. It's not that big of a full moon. But it's going to be, I feel like, a noticeable enough level that you feel purified, that you feel cleansed, that you feel renewed and excited about what's to come. And so I think that this full moon is about this process of renewal. So you might not feel excited right away, or you might start getting inklings of it, but I think the energy will start to build up, especially as the sun moves into your 1st house. And that's when you can kind of go ahead and take action, and really see how this is meant to be born into your life. So very, very much exciting in that way. And I think it's going to ultimately help you kind of release from things that could have been holding you back. So if you've had debts or insecurities or unspoken issues with people, like things that you really need to have heart-to-hearts about, things that you need to pay off so you don't have to think about it and you can just move forward. These kinds of situations can come up for you to just wash your hands clean of it. And so you might find that you are finally paying off that course that you invested in, or you might find that you are consolidating and looking at finances with your partner, or you might have a difficult conversation with a friend and you'll notice that you feel 10 times lighter after it. And so I think that, again, is that process of shedding. You guys also have Mercury in retrograde in your 1st house in the sign of Libra. So Mercury, whether this is for your sun sign, is going to pass over your sun, or moving through your 1st house, Mercury is going to speak to your sun and give you a little bit more wisdom about what it needs. And it's in the sign of relationships. So it might actually be through conversations and through other people that you start to discover what it is that you need. And this is making a trine to Mars and Gemini in the 9th house. So I think that part of what you need is going to be this sense of creativity and pushing your boundaries a little bit, exploring some new horizons. I'm getting the 3 of Wands energy, going to a foreign land. You could be quite literally doing that, studying something new, picking up a new book. There is some way in which you're meant to, again, push the boundary of who you've been. And for some of you, this could have to do with more literal things of like, you are quite literally dealing with paperwork or international affairs or going abroad. Or maybe you're interested in some kind of teaching thing. So anyway, there's lots of different ways that this can manifest, but you might notice that you feel like most excited in these specific areas. Mercury is also opposing Jupiter in your 7th house. So I think that this might be a time in which you have maybe a lot of excitement and optimism that can come up, but you can also kind of spread yourself too thin, especially concerning relationships. Mercury is in your sign, so it's really encouraging you to get out there and talk and like connect. But at the end of the day, you also need to reflect and have time to integrate and spend time on yourself. And so there may be this kind of push and pull between these areas of your life. Am I reflecting enough on me? And am I, giving enough to my relationship? And how can I balance and not bite off more than I can chew? How can I be like grounded in my sense of optimism as well, when it concerns others and potentials with others? And you guys also have Venus in Virgo in your 12th house, squaring Mars in the 9th house. So Venus is your planetary ruler. So having it in the 12th house is also another reason why you may experience some physical lack of energy, physical, like you're just a little bit weaker sometimes. And it's squaring Mars in the 9th. So there may be ways in which you do feel weakened since it's the ascendant ruler, and that can kind of make you feel a little bit more negative when right now you're supposed to be inspired. You're supposed to be pushing the boundaries like I mentioned. But sometimes, even though that might create that friction or stop you in a way from feeling your like most excited self, it's through the act of slowing down. It's through the act of introspection that you do actually achieve an understanding of what you want to do next and how you want to expand. So they are both necessary, even though they are in friction with each other. And I pulled the 5th house for you, creativity. So I think many of you guys are going to be feeling very creative, feeling very inspired, and again, trying lots of new things. I mean, in a sense of like, if you've had something on your to-do list or on your ideas that you've been wanting to do, like actually following through with that. So it looks very exciting for you guys. And I hope that you enjoyed this. If it resonates, please let me know by commenting down below. I love and read all of your comments. And if you want astrology reading from me, check me out at lowsbum.com. Thanks. Bye. All right, up next we have my beautiful Scorpio rising. For you guys, this full moon in Pisces is happening in your 5th house. This full moon is conjunct Neptune, and the sun is opposite it in Virgo in 11th house to create, of course, the full moon. So this is generally really good. I am seeing a little bit of intensity in the cards, but I feel like it's one of these kinds of energies that's like, oh, just give me that push and I'm going to give you so much in return. And so that's really what I'm seeing from this, because a full moon in the 5th house or the 11th house, which yours is in the 5th, is a time of increase where we're going to put something in and we're going to get something out later on. So essentially it gives us something back. It gives us something that can nourish us and fulfill us in a really creative and inspiring way. And especially because that's what this full moon is about anyway. But being in the 5th house, it's already creative and inspiring. And it's trying to connect you more with your personal self-expression, more with your own desire nature. And it's also making a sextile to Uranus in your 7th house. So it may be that some changes kind of happen within your relationships. It may be that other people are offering some different insights or breakthroughs for you that then kind of facilitate this new self-expression. Or if you're in the dating world, you could have a new beginning and meet somebody new. Or in general, you may find that you're interested in working or collaborating with somebody or making new friends. And you can create a little bit more of a social network or community through these aspects here. And so I think that your ability to aspire to be your most authentic self, to follow the things that bring you joy, to pursue your creative interests, or to pursue the person that you like, to dabble in this class because it sounded fun to you, all of those things where you're learning how to indulge yourself, especially with this Neptune energy. Like, what are you feeling? Follow that impulse, follow that energy, follow that emotion. And as you do that, I think it's going to lead to shifts or breakthroughs or new events happening in your relationship area. This could mean meeting new clients. This could be getting new contracts. This could be making new friends. This could be having a shift in your current romantic relationship. It could vary a lot. Maybe some of you are becoming more sexual. I don't know. You know, there's lots of ways that this can manifest, but it's in your best interest right now to indulge the self. And again, this will then shift or create some kind of change in your dynamic with others, which will ultimately help create more freedom and more liberation in that area of your life. So, yes. So You guys also have Mercury in Libra in the 12th house. So it's retrograde and it's trining Mars in the 8th in Gemini. This is where the things get a little bit hairy because the 8th and 12th house can be hard. And Mercury's also opposing Jupiter and Chiron in Aries in the 6th house. So 6, 8, 12 houses, those are the hardest houses. But again, because this full moon is so positive overall, I think it's ultimately really going to benefit you. So what I'm seeing here is maybe needing to face some truths about things. To get a bird's eye view, a bigger perspective, see things in kind of higher saturation, see things with more clarity. And I pulled the Saturn card, which says truth, and the Eagle card, which, let me read what it says about Eagle. It says, ambition, duty, fortitude, and willpower. You are unperturbed by life's obstacles. You strive to achieve great heights and are rarely satisfied with anything less than the best that life has to offer. And so that's what I'm getting from this. It's not like, oh, you got to face the truth about how you've been, like you really suck or this person sucks. No, it's like, have you been settling in some way? Because you have the potential to have the absolute best and nothing can stand in your way. Sometimes Mercury in the 12th, we can actually be a little bit self-sabotagey. Like our mind, our decisions, we can make them from fear, especially with Mars also in the 8th house. We can do that. But since this is a full moon of liberation and healing and following our bliss and indulging ourselves, what I'm really seeing is that you guys are overcoming ways in which you maybe have limited yourself or put yourself into a box and not allowed yourself to be this eagle. This is your spirit animal for the month. You are meant to see these bigger horizons. You are meant to picture yourself in these scenarios, to have the ambition to achieve greatness. And so I think if there are limitations that Saturn brings in, it's time to see them for what they are, as fear. And then also not seeing them as a closed door or a dead end. A limitation is not an invitation to stop. And so just don't make it mean that. If there's a limitation, we have to push through. We have to persevere. So sometimes we can limit ourselves and we have to push through that. And other times there are limitations that we experience. And you might be like, Courtney, but there are things going wrong. That's okay, because with these cards, you are meant to push through them and you actually will achieve success if you do not give up. Mars in Gemini in the 8th house, actually, Mars can be really beautiful in the 8th house. You know why? Because the 8th house is a time of crisis and Mars can step up in a situation of crisis. It's the firefighter, it's the policeman, it's the person running towards the danger that is coming at them. And it's armed, it's prepared, it's strong, it knows its worth, it knows what it's capable of. And so that's why it doesn't back down. And so that's how I'm seeing you meet this month. I'm not going to let myself limit myself like I used to. I'm not going to let myself keep myself in a box. I'm going to pursue the things that really light me up. And I'm going to face anything that is an obstacle for me, whether it's myself or something outside of me. So I'm really, really seeing that for you. And I think Jupiter in the 6th is going to help unleash you, because the 6th house is where I really see people kind of get themselves bogged down in the minutia, in lowering ourselves, becoming subservient to others or our goals. And I really am seeing you guys being of service, but stepping up in your own power, in your own right, and facing and moving through these obstacles instead of lowering yourself down. You guys also have Venus in Virgo, which is in fall, in the 11th house, squaring Mars in the 8th. So this is where I see some friction for everyone, where Venus and Mars squaring can have a little bit of conflict. Sometimes this can come up in your social circle. So maybe as you start to kind of push past these limitations or these crises or anything getting in your way, some of that fierceness coming through could rub people the wrong way, could maybe not be in line with the collective of where you're at. So maybe you are in a community or in a job, in a center where like the status quo has been a certain way, and now you are trying to do things differently. Now you're trying to shake things up. Now you're trying to live beyond the patterns or beyond what you had set for yourself before. And so sometimes that can be like oh, she's gonna do that? Like, I don't know. So that's where that clash can kind of come in. But ultimately, we need to come up with a creative solution where we're honoring our own light and where we're not disturbing the community too much. So having that kind of balance will ultimately be achieved through imbalance at first and kind of figuring it out. So I think that you guys, just if you can remember to tap into this eagle and feel the fierceness of Saturn, feel the fierceness of Mars, and this consistency, this dedication, this relentlessness of I will not give up in the search of my passions, in the not the search, but the pursuit of what lights me up. And I think that's really what the eagle is here to do. It's here to help empower you on this journey. So I hope that that resonates for you. This seems like a really beautiful and transformative time. If it does resonate, please let me know by commenting down below. I read all of them and they are very, very meaningful for me. And if you want an astrology reading, come check me out at willowspoon.com or using the link down below. Bye. All right, up next we have my beautiful Sagittarius Rising. So for you guys, this full moon is happening in your 4th house with Neptune there as well. And it is a full moon in Pisces. So Pisces, 4th house, Neptune, highly emotional, I would say. Very expressive. So if you feel kind of a lot of emotions coming to the surface, know that that's really normal. I also pulled the whale card for you, which I definitely get the sense of like really diving deep into your emotional reservoir. That means the sun, though, is in your 10th house, lighting up the moon in the 4th. So there is a heavy emphasis on career right now in general. And so this could be a time in which you are able to check in very deeply with how you feel and how inspired you are in order to determine any new directions in your life path. These could be changes of status, like getting married, even buying a house, things of that nature. That's really common for this type of full moon. Or maybe if it's not activating your chart in such a powerful way, if it's not on any planets, then you might have smaller experiences, like maybe shifting your image at work or having maybe a new goal come in that you can kind of tack on to something that you're already doing. And so I think that the full moon in the 4th house is going to help you create more of the emotional stability or stability within the home or a deeper connection to yourself in order to then eventually go out and explore in the external world what it is that you want to create and what it is that you truly desire to move forward into. So again, this could be a very psychic or intuitive time because your emotions are so heightened, your senses are heightened as well. So really pay attention to what's around you and how things make you feel. That's the whale card. The whale dives deep into themselves and they can really tune in with what is around them down there. Because if you ever go diving, which is like my favorite thing in the whole world, sorry, there's a cat eating behind me. I'm babysitting. But if you ever go into the ocean and you're underwater and you're diving, for example, there's just so much calm. You're like fully enveloped. And that's really what I feel like with Neptune here and this being a watery Pisces full moon. We're just being enveloped by our emotions and kind of just being held in this state of calmness and quiet and surrender. And so I feel like the more that you can dive into that state, the more you'll be able to tune in and understand what is coming up for you, what's coming next for you. But again, this could manifest in really practical ways, like things kind of happening around the home, moving home, buying homes, that type of thing. But that's only if it really activates your chart personally. This full moon is also sextiling Uranus in the 6th house, which contributes to changes within the workplace, changes within our routine, our health, even sometimes our small pets. So if we are kind of feeling things, maybe our pets are feeling what we're feeling. But generally when we have a Uranus in the 6th house, this is like a malefic house. I don't think people use that term necessarily for houses, but just the idea that the house itself can tend to generate uncomfortable kind of events in life. But essentially the 6th house here, I think, because this is a positive full moon, I think it's going to give some relief to areas in your life that actually could feel out of balance. Oh, and as I said that, I literally looked down at the Libra balance card. I'm feeling really in tune with my intuition today. The cards are like almost unnecessary. Sometimes I need them, every day is different. But I think that you guys are looking to actually seek a balance, and it's coming through some sort of change. So the sextile with Uranus is saying that there may be some emotional insight that you gain about yourself, or some changes within the home, or even kind of your career objectives, all the things that I was just mentioning. Those things may accumulate to a change within your daily routine. And so this might look like getting up earlier, eating healthier foods, getting a new job, having different priorities at your job or in your life, taking care of your health in different ways. And then also trying to maybe create more liberation from uneven situations or even toxic situations. If anything has been out of balance, if someone has had more power in a dynamic or more say over a decision, or someone has been more dominant within the workplace, I am getting the sense that you being really grounded into your feeling center, into what you want, is going to help you, I believe, hold boundaries in a better way, which will allow you to take up space and allow you to even out some of these unequal dynamics. So that's just coming through intuitively. That's not going to apply to everyone. And part of the reason I say that is because Mars is in Gemini in your 7th house. So it will be here for just about 7 months. It'll be here until March of 2023. So you do the math on that. But Mars in the 7th house can tend to bring up friction with other people in our lives. And Mars is really our basic instinct to self-preserve, to preserve ourselves. So anger, boundaries, passion, sex drive, ambition, all of these things are to continue our human race, to protect ourselves. They are central to survival. And so Mars being in the 7th house is going to create that friction with your need to protect yourself and survive and do what's best for you versus what others are trying to do that's best for them. And so you may find a little bit more tension, frustration, arguments, things that come up that really, when you get down to super, super basic level, are two people trying to meet their needs that might differ. And they're trying to assert some of their masculine energy to get those needs met. And so the benefit here is that it's hanging out for so long, which is not typical for Mars. Mars usually passes through a sign within 2 months. So the benefit here is that this experience of tension is going to enable you to really learn how to harness the masculine energy and work with your boundaries. So if there has been any imbalance, which hopefully with the sextile, the Uranus in 6th house will highlight and liberate you from. But if there has been imbalances within relationships, I think that will become apparent, and you'll be able to kind of work through those things. Also, Mars in the 7th house can make us really motivated for other people. So if you work with one-on-one clients, this is like, I'm so stoked to go out and help these people and find these clients and do everything I can for them. Or if you're single, maybe it's you really desiring a relationship or a partnership, or if you're with a partner, activating more so like that passion and even sex drive within the relationship. You guys have Mercury in retrograde in Libra in this 11th house, and it's making a trine to Mars in the 7th. So I think that ultimately your relationship areas are really being highlighted, which is part of the reason why I pulled the Libra card. So I think that you guys maybe at this time navigating big decisions or things in life where it's kind of, is it me or is it them? Like, I care about my relationships, but I also care about myself in this scenario. And that's kind of been coming up a lot lately anyway. But because you're having Mercury in the 11th house of friendship and Mars in the 7th house of partnerships, I feel like there's this tension even more so highlighted. So I think that you guys are having to, again, have a full moon in the 4th house, so you become extremely sensitized to your own needs, as well as to some of maybe your past programming and some of the like roots that hold you into this earth and into this lifetime. And sometimes those roots, those needs, those things from childhood can be the issue that bumps up against other people's, because they were raised in a different way and they have different needs and different ways of coping with how their childhood made them feel. And so all those things you're becoming very sensitized to, so you can navigate in an almost expert way these relationship dynamics. And I think you will succeed very well at that. And with Mercury opposite Jupiter in the 5th, I think this is going to give you like more of a social life. I think this is going to give you more ease in finding connections. I think it's going to help you explore some of the things that are really exciting if you live in a certain area. The only thing I would warn against here is overindulging and not planning enough for the future. And that is where that balance comes in with Mercury and Libra in the 11th house. Planning for the future and not getting so caught up in the now and your desires of now. You'll also have Venus in fall and Virgo in the 10th house, squaring Mars in the 7th. So this is kind of touching on what I mentioned before. I definitely feel like some of you guys are making bigger life decisions about your career, your goals, your status in the world, where you live, who you marry, your reputation, like what jobs you want to take. All those things can become central issues at this point in time, and they could be on smaller scales, as I mentioned. But these decisions, these directions may rub up against other people with Mars in the 7th, and you may have some arguments or some need to essentially compromise and hopefully make both people happy in a scenario. So definitely a lot of relationship skills being built up here, learning how to hold one's boundaries while also being very in tune and sensitive and empathetic to yourself and to others. So this is going to be, a lot of like emotional training for you guys. So I hope that resonates. If it does, please let me know by commenting down below. I read all of your comments. They mean so much to me. Really, really do, even if I'm very slow to respond. And sorry about that. And if you want a reading, you can always check out my readings on willowswim.com. Thanks. Bye. All right, up next we have my beautiful Capricorn risings. This full moon in Pisces is happening in your 3rd house, conjunct Neptune, and it is obviously going to oppose the sun, which is in Virgo in your 9th house. So you guys may have found recently that you want to really get your life organized and together with the sun in Virgo, but especially being in the 9th house, I feel like even 9th, 10th, 11th house, those are houses of planning and future orientation. So when the sun is in Virgo in a future-oriented sign, you know that we're trying to be practical, set things into motion, meet our deadlines, but also meet our future needs. And what's really great about this full moon in particular is that because it is in a water sign and because it is conjunct Neptune and in your 3rd house, you are able to then use a lot of your psychic awareness and intuition to play out some of those practical needs into the future. So you're not just operating from a very analytical mind, which sometimes the sun in Virgo can orient us to. You're also really able to tap into the emotional depths that you carry within you so that you are acting from total alignment. And so I think many of you guys are going to notice that you're feeling quite psychic around this time because the 3rd and 9th house axis really allows this emotional awareness, this energetic sensitivity to be directly poured into our mind. And so that is essentially what gives us more awareness to things that we're not usually open to. So it's not just our senses, but it's like our mind is then absorbing it like a sponge, these different energies. And so we can start perceiving things differently. So if you notice your dreams more, if you notice your like a synchronistic thing that somebody says or a sign that you see and you had this like gut instinct about something, really tune into that. Because especially with this Otter card and this Uranus card combined, I am getting the sense that you guys are going to have a potential to have like instant downloads come to you, especially with the sun moving to the 9th house. The sun is the illuminator. It's the king of the zodiac. And so when it moves to the 9th house of divination, it's like we have direct access to some kind of portal that we don't always necessarily have as much ease of accessing as other times of the year. And so for you in particular, this is a really, really great time to look out for these messages from the universe that they are trying to communicate. And it can come in very suddenly because this full moon is sextiling Uranus in the 5th house. Something that I'm seeing here with the Uranus and Otter card, and also the chart, of course, is a heavy emphasis on our creative genius. So the Otter is a very playful animal. This is your spirit animal for the month. So this will help you, at least for the first half of the month, this will help you navigate. When you ask yourself, does this make me feel curious? Does this make me feel expansive? Does it feel light? Does it feel fun? Does it feel engaging? Because there's always going to be points in time when our responsibilities feel like responsibilities, but they can still feel like responsibilities and be engaging and be super able to light us up. And that's how I feel about astrology. If I'm just like every other person. I do love work because I'm a Capricorn moon. But if I have to sit down and record something for, an hour and a half to 3 hours, there is a certain amount of resistance there because it's expending energy. And we're human beings. We don't want to expend energy. It's just in our nature. But then once you get into the flow state, which is what you're trying to achieve here, it's engaging enough for you that you don't think about the time. So there might be resistance at first, but once you're in it, you're in flow, you're feeling it, it clicks with you on an internal level. And that's what the sextile to Uranus in the 5th house does, is it really brings your radio frequency and tunes essentially the channel to your essence. It makes you very aware of what is authentic, what is genuine, what is so you, what's in alignment, and what isn't. And so you may find that there are certain things that don't feel as fun, as exciting, that just kind of fall away. Or you might really gravitate towards something. So really tune into that. Use your psychic awareness. Use a sense of playfulness to discover more of what you want to do. We also have Mercury retrograde in Libra in your 10th house. And this is trining Mars and Gemini in the 6th. And Mercury is also opposing Jupiter and Chiron in the 4th house. So I think that this playfulness is ultimately going to inform your career decisions. Like, oh, I just tried this thing over the weekend and it was really fun. And because of that, I kind of know now what I'm going to do next. And I really think I've been saying this message to Capricorns many times. And so I feel like it's really trying to get you to this place, because Capricorn risings or Capricorn suns can have a huge degree of practicality, which is great, and heavy planning, all this stuff. But also sometimes you can get stuck in a box when you define what your future looks like. And so maybe allowing yourself to color outside the lines is a message that you need to hear more than once in order to be able to actually do that. Or in order to consider maybe a totally different path than you originally anticipated. And this will, of course, kind of depend on how this is aspecting your chart. If it's not hitting a planet or an angle, it's unlikely that it's going to make a huge impact in that way, but it's almost like just picking up a different paintbrush. So you have a different stroke. Maybe the paint is the same, the color is the same, the picture is the same, but you're going about it in a different way. And so that might be the case for some of you with less of personal planets involved in your chart. And if you want to know that, you can always check out a reading from me. So I think that you guys are in a process of discovery as well as achieving a certain degree of balance within your career right now. So I'm definitely getting the sense of like dabbling in creativity, and that can then extend into your career. But I'm also getting a sense with Mercury opposite Jupiter in the 4th house, there is definitely an oscillation between kind of the inner world, taking care of yourself and your home and just life in your cocoon versus what you have to do externally. And sometimes we can take on too much when Mercury is opposite Jupiter, especially with Mars and Gemini in the 6th house. This is kind of like workhorse energy, and you feel like you can do it all, and you feel like you're Superwoman or Superman, and you just kind of get to this point of burnout at some point. And so just be mindful of that and your energy. And we can kind of see this coming up with Venus in Virgo in the 9th house, squaring Mars in the 6th. There can be a sense of over-optimism, of really valuing a lot of different things. Like, I want to value all these experiences. I want to keep growing. I want to do this. I want to do that. And sometimes Mars in the 6th wants us to become actually more dedicated and more masterful. And so you have competing needs right now. And I'm not trying to tell you to do one or the other. It's more so, how can we marry these needs? Because there is a lot of playfulness. There is a lot of excitement and ingenuity and creativity that you are kind of going through at this moment. And that also has to be married with the practicality, the hard work that Mars in the 6th house brings, and just a need to be optimistic about that hard work as well. So the other thing I would just mention really briefly is to be a little bit more mindful of your physical and mental health with Mars in the 6th. This can be good because Mars actually likes to be in the 6th house. So it can be good in terms of like getting you really like physically fit and exercising and being really dedicated to your health. But sometimes because it's so fiery and it's in an air sign, which kind of stokes a fire, there can be like a high level of mental activity, which obviously results in overstimulation and anxiety. So this full moon in the 3rd house, I think, is going to bring some calm, soothing waters over your mindset, but also take advantage of this by allowing yourself to sit still, which might be counterintuitive for a full moon in the 3rd house, but with all these watery Neptune energies, that's, I think, the recommendation here is to find like a moving meditation or to find more stillness in some way within the mind. So that is what I'm seeing for you, Capricorn Rising. If that resonates, please let me know in the comments down below. They always mean so much to me, even when I'm very slow to respond. And if you want an astrology reading, definitely check me out at willismoon.com, and I hope you have a great day. Bye. All right, up next we have my beautiful Aquarius risings. For you guys, this full moon in Pisces is happening in your 2nd house, conjunct Neptune. That means the sun is opposite it in Virgo in your 8th house. So I first want to start off by saying the sun in a watery house, like the 8th house, in a house traditionally associated with deep introspection and sometimes crisis, is a time in which we are diving more so into our psychological development or into our deeper connections or our desire for emotional security, especially with others. This is a very relationship-oriented house. It's the house of other people's money. So you may have a general focus on these different areas of your life, especially within relationships. So setting the backdrop of you being very much psychologically tuned in to yourself, to others, to relationship dynamics, and how your sense of security can be disturbed either through money or emotional turmoil. So that is the primary focus. That is the primary, not the primary focus, but that's like where the energy is this month for you. The sun is then opposite the moon and Neptune in the 2nd house. So this also brings up questions around security. And because this is a full moon and super watery in the sign of Pisces with the intuitive moon and very spiritual and psychic Neptune, we are bringing in this really deep added layer of, again, like our emotional vigilance, our emotional understanding around what is security, what is value, what do I want, like physically in my life, to feel safe, to feel taken care of, to feel stable, and normally it would be really materialistic. And I actually do see materialism, like money and things coming, because it is a full moon and because some cards I pulled. But because it's so watery, there is a sense of what's actually underneath it. The emotional fulfillment of whatever this is the key here, is the most important thing here. So let's just say, for example, that someone passed away and you got an inheritance. So yes, you are getting the finances, but the emotions surrounding this event is much more impactful. So first of all, the emotions of losing someone that you love is very impactful. And second of all, the emotions of suddenly having, immense wealth, or, whatever, however much money you got, and how that can shift your focus of like, now I'm no longer in this space of scarcity. I'm now in this space of abundance, and how that can really change how you are inside, because you're not contracting, you're opening up, you're inviting life in, because there's, again, this sense of security, which can bring a little bit of fulfillment, right? Like I can now check this box and move on to my second need, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Maslow. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. And so again, I feel like there's some huge undercurrent of emotional well-being that is stirred up during this full moon. And yes, I think money is coming, but I think the biggest thing here is what it's doing for you on a spiritual and soul level. I think it's going to bring you peace and let you feel at ease, which is just ultimately, when we want security, that's what we're looking for. So I feel like you guys are actually tuning into that. You're feeling it. You're grateful for it. You're allowing it in, especially because this full moon is sextiling Uranus in the 4th house. Again, another emotional house. So the 2nd house is very practical, but there's emotional planets in it. And it's sextiling Uranus in the 4th house, an emotional house. So it's connecting more emotional stuff to it. And so I feel like you're getting this deeper rootedness, which is actually making you feel more free. It's the irony of, like, I have a routine, and so I actually have freedom now because of this consistency or these constraints. Certain constraints provide freedom. Certain that's just with scheduling, which is not super applicable to this specific scenario, but it's also just like having money provides that freedom, right? Allowing yourself to feel secure and root into where you are, maybe invest more into your house, maybe spend money on your family members, or even spend money on a therapist. Sun 8th house, Uranus 4th house. I'm going to invest in myself emotionally. Like, you feel like you can actually utilize this stuff to feel better on all fronts and to feel grounded, which then allows you to feel free, which again is where the irony is. And I think that the sun is in the 8th house. So ultimately you may still have to go through these moments of anxiety or tension, or have to experience some, emotionally activating situation. But again, I feel like you're getting something out of it that's really stabilizing as well. And sometimes I think we have to face certain conflicts in order to be really grounded and stable and secure, because we've now addressed the instability that was there. And the reason I say that is partially because Venus and the sun are in the 8th house. And another reason is because I pulled the rabbit card, which is a card of luck in many cultures. They have the rabbit foot that people carry on a keychain, which is honestly super fucked up. But the rabbit itself is a sign of luck, prosperity, fertility, abundance coming. It's the marker of spring, which is when everything starts to come back to life again. And so you might be gaining a lot from this, especially mixed with the part of fortune card, which is a part of the chart that has to do with an increase of financial wealth. So that is really incredible. Like I am absolutely seeing a fortunate time coming. And the Rabbit is an anxious card. It's fearful, and it's largely scared of losing something. And that might also come up for you, that something might affect you emotionally and bring you a lot of peace and a lot of stability. But sometimes it can have the adverse effect where we gain something like financial wealth and then we're scared of losing it. So there may be just a lot of emotional processing going on here. But that's essentially what I'm trying to say, is like the emotions seem to be outweighing the actual situation. Like the situation is setting things up for the emotions to take place. But ultimately I see this moon as very, very positive. So I think it's going to, even if it feels activating at times, it's going to bring a lot to you as a person and to your sense of security in the world. Mercury is also retrograde in Libra in your 9th house, trining Mars and Gemini in the 5th house. And this to me is like that sense of security is giving you room to play and envision more for yourself, and try different things. I feel like this could be you taking trips, learning new things, being social, basically anything that you can think of that sounds really pleasing to you. This is going to enhance those areas of your life and give you more potential for that. Mercury is also opposite Jupiter in the 3rd house. So there is always going to be some element of not wanting to overdo it, right? We don't want to be overly optimistic. We don't want to be overly indulgent. We want to also be kind of grounded in the here, in the now, while also having faith. And then lastly, Venus is in fall in Virgo in your 8th house, squaring Mars in the 5th. And so this, I kind of want to pull a card on this. Hang on. Because this is where we begin to see tension for many individuals. With Venus squaring Mars, it can bring up, it can really bring up like differences in opinions within a relationship. And Venus being in the 8th house is already a little bit insecure. And on top of that, it's in fall. So it's not a very strong Venus. And then it's making a hard aspect to Mars, which is its competitor. It's polarity. It's the masculine, the argumentative, the side that wants to get its way. And in the 5th house, it can be very indulgent. Like, I want this, so I'm going to have it now. And Venus in the 8th house is a lot more like insecure and uncertain about itself and doesn't know if it can just take what it wants, and is more like preserving what it has. And so you might have this interesting like square between these two of having new things that you want to create or to do, that you're really excited and passionate about, that you're kind of going after, and then other parts of you that wants to like preserve yourself and hold yourself back in some ways, or make sure that you're not hurt. And this could be applicable to relationships. This could be applicable to ideas. This is not like, it's a one size fits all type of thing. So, fit it how it fits you, if that makes sense. So yeah, there may be ways in which you're contending with the idea of being grabby, like grabbing what you want, taking what you want, going after what you want, and then self-preserving. This is what I have. I'm going to hold myself back. I'm going to hold myself here. I'm going to, I'm very sensitive and vulnerable in some ways, that I may be more insecure, that I don't want to just like go out into the world and grab those things. So I hope that makes sense. And I hope that applies to you. If it does, I would really love to hear, so I could have some clarity for myself about what I'm even trying to say. That'd be super, super awesome. If you just comment down below how this is showing up in your life in any way, shape, or form, that will really help my practice as well. And I hope you guys have a beautiful day. If you're interested in astrology reading, check me out at lilspoon.com. And I love you guys. Bye. All right, and last but never least, we have my beautiful Pisces rising. So this is a Pisces full moon. That means this is happening in your first house. And I pulled some very sensitive cards, which makes a lot of sense because you are Pisces. Pisces tend to be big feelers. It's a full moon, bigger emotions. But on top of that, this moon is conjunct Neptune, which is highly psychic, highly sensitized, sometimes overly sensitized, at least for me. And yes, so you guys are going to be very much tuned into the psychic or spiritual realm if you allow yourself to be. The sun is lighting up this moon in Virgo in your 7th house. So there may be a heavy concentration on relationships in this month for you. You may have to make decisions about relationships or see relationships unfold in different ways or have clarity around the relationships because of this dynamic. And I think ultimately what this is going to do is allow you to be very much in tune with your own feelings, your own higher self and psychic awareness, all of these things, your emotional understanding around relationships so that you can navigate these new insights or these new directions or these ideas and your next steps, which are all synonyms. Anywho, I think that this is going to be very beneficial for you. I pulled the Cancer I Feel card. So it's going to help you identify what is going to make me feel my best in a dynamic. Can I trust this person? Can I invest in this person? And this could be in any scenario. It doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. Am I getting my needs met in this relationship? How do I explain my needs if I'm not? There are like a million different scenarios. And I think for many of you, it could be an awakening. It could be an awakening to feelings that you have had that have maybe been submerged, or gut instincts that you have ignored. And that's not going to be for everyone, but if you have been ignoring something, it will come full circle and it will be extremely obvious at this time. Especially with the sextile to Uranus in the 3rd house, this is stimulating your mind as well and giving you sudden ideas, sudden concepts, and sometimes sudden conversations that maybe go in unexpected twists and turns. Maybe you start off a conversation one way, you're feeling some type of way. Maybe you're like, I feel very intensely, but I'm not really sure. And then you sit down and have this conversation and you wind up breaking up. Or you sit down and you have this conversation and you wind up realizing that the whole thing was actually, the whole issue you're having is actually related to something else. It's like it can take on this unexpected kind of light. But even if it doesn't take on something unexpected, what it is going to do for you is liberate you. Because there's something that your emotions are coming up for. You don't have a full moon with Neptune and all this psychic energy if everything is fine, everything is perfect, and life is just continuing as normal. I mean, maybe for some, that's why it's happening, just to feel really in tune with life. But usually astrology is very purposeful and we can see why it's coming in at this moment. Why are you becoming so much more heightened and sensitive right now? There's something that's off. There's something that your emotions are trying to help you navigate. Our emotions are our compass. They're our alert system. Our psychic senses are our alert system. And so there is a very divine reason as to why this is happening right now. And so if you have no idea why, by this full moon, I think you will know why. And you will have the right conversations, say the right things to create the feelings that you actually need in your life. Because there's something that's a little bit off. And the previous moons have really showed that to us. They have been harder moons to deal with. And so this is a time of resolution, of healing, of closure, of wrapping up something that the previous moons highlighted were uncomfortable. And maybe you don't have even full awareness of why. And I think this full moon, you will know why, because of the psychic awareness. And I pulled the Crow card, the Cancer I Feel, and the Crow card. These are some of the most psychic cards you can have. You're seeing beyond what is right in front of you. You're seeing to your soul and to your future and the evolutionary reason some of these things are happening. Why am I going through this? Why does this feel misaligned? How does this align with my childhood? How does this align with my future self? It's like you're able to see so much more because you're seeing it through your third eye. And then you're able to make these radical decisions or have these radical conversations that free you because you're not stuck in your routine. You're able to pull out and get this higher self psychic awareness of a situation and navigate it from that point. And it's so much easier because you don't have as much personal resistance and you're not identifying with the story. You're able to see your soul across lifetimes and be like, I don't want to continue this karmic thing, or I am continuously not asking for my needs, which is, I'm just going to say it, Pisces, you guys are sometimes way too lenient. You're sometimes way too much of people pleasers. And it's going to depend on the rest of your chart. But there is sometimes trouble asserting oneself into your own life, asking for what you need, demanding what you need, and confronting people because there's a lot of passivity in Pisces. And so I think your emotions may overwhelm you at this time in order to push you to be like, we can't do this anymore. We have to take action in this way. We have to embody the masculine to protect our passive, sensitive feminine. And if you're not going to do it, no one will, right? You guys also have Mercury and Libra in the 8th house, trining Mars and Gemini in the 4th. And I think this is going to make you very psychologically aware of what's happening within you and how it ties to your past. And hopefully that Mars will help you push towards action, push yourself to act, to again protect your emotional security. What's going to make me feel stable? What's going to make me feel like I can be myself, that I can let my guard down, that I can be vulnerable? What actions do I need to take to get into that state? Because again, I think some of you, so there's something amiss here where with Mercury in the 8th house, you may have had to put up guards in some way. Like, do you trust someone? Do you feel at ease around somebody? Is there a situation? Maybe it's not even a person. Maybe it's an organization. But I think because it's on the 7th house, it's likely a specific person. But you could, you never know. Does this organization give me this odd feeling and I just don't know why? And then you feel a little bit like uneasy and you're not fully yourself. And so if you are in that state, it is time to take the action that will allow you to feel at ease. You are a Pisces. You are meant to flow. If you are trying to hold everything in, you are not going to be in your best flow state. That's why you have to have the masculine to protect the feminine so that you can flow anywhere you want to flow and not get taken advantage of and not get overly hurt and blame yourself. Mercury in the 8th house is also opposite Jupiter in the 2nd. So there can be very big questions around what makes me feel safe? What makes me feel confident? How vulnerable can I be versus how self-preserving can I be and autonomous and independent versus how reliant I am on somebody else? So there is this dynamic between the two, and it might be a little bit harder to navigate. Jupiter is a positive planet, so it's going to be good, but sometimes we have trouble balancing when Jupiter is in the mix. We have trouble landing into some even proportionate place, and we can go swing on either side of the pendulum. And so this is why tapping really deeply into your own intuition is going to help you hopefully create some settled balance of the two. And then lastly, Venus is in fall and Virgo in your 7th house, squaring Mars in your 4th. So this is, again, where I'm seeing that friction. Somebody else wants something different than you. Somebody else isn't going to see things as clearly as you see them. Maybe someone wants to smoke weed in the house and you want them to not do that. Maybe one partner wants to do to be super social and one partner wants to stay at home. These are light examples, and it could get much more important and big depending on if it's aspecting a planet in your chart. But these things cause like core rifts and like disagreements and resentment to build up if they're not addressed. And so Venus squaring Mars is asking you to face this thing head on and address it. Say the thing that you mean to say. You don't need to be mean. I don't think you will be as a Pisces rising. Again, depending on your chart. I don't think you'll be mean, but no need to be mean. No need to be cruel. But also, how can we really embrace our inner oomph, our inner fire to protect ourselves, to ask for our needs to be met? And so if that person is smoking weed in the house and it is disturbing your peace in some way, you know, really sitting down with them, first of all, understanding yourself, like, why is this disturbing me? Why do I need to have a sense of control over my home and my environment? What will it do for me to have this stop? Like analyzing your past. What does that have to do with my family? What is this going to do for my future me? What if it doesn't stop? What would that be like? Like really digging into all these facets to fully understand a situation, Mars and Gemini, and then confronting it when you know it's worthy to confront. When you know it's going to linger, emotionally stay with you. And again, you're super psychic right now. You already know. You know. So it's time to trust yourself, to awaken to your inner power, awaken to your inner light. You are one of the most, if not the most, psychic of all the zodiac. And so it's time to allow yourself to fully embrace these emotions and use them as your guide and protect yourself so that you can feel these things and not get hurt, not be in the wrong situation, the wrong people who would just be like, F you, I'm gonna smoke in the house, I'm gonna do what I want. Like maybe you have the wrong roommate. You know, it's like time to look at these scenarios. Am I safe here? I'm fighting for my needs. I'm fighting for my safety so that I can be the sensitive soul that I am. And your emotions are the things that are, again, going to tell you if you are safe. So that's what I'm seeing for you, Pisces. I hope that resonates. If it does, please let me know by commenting down below. I read all your comments and they really help my practice to be able to identify what's going on in your life. So the more personal, the more information, honestly, the better it is for me. I feel like connected to you. I recognize your names that you're commenting all the time. I start to piece things together. It's just a really beautiful experience for me. So I do appreciate that if you do leave a comment or like to show your invisible support. That's great too. And if you want an astrology reading, definitely check me out, willow.com, or using the link in the description box down below. And I hope you guys have a beautiful one. Stay safe, stay blessed.